My next discussion is something that I think a lot of people are talking about, but nobody wants to put it out there, so I'm going to start it up for you. Salary wages. There's some tremendously high pay raises being proposed. I'm going to take myself right out of this whole discussion tonight. But this is what I'm going to start off with. You have an employee sitting at the table with you who's been here for 30 years. Comes to work every day and does her job to the best of her ability and more. And she's put in for a 3% pay raise. Mr. Erickson, 3% pay raise. And then it goes off, up to almost 16% for one individual. So now, I've never been asked in 13 years to give myself a pay raise. I always go by what the administration proposes. And I go back to when things were really tough in this town when I started as a Parks and Recreation Director at an amount of money that I thought was ridiculous. Fortunately, I had another career, and I have a pension that offsets that minimum money that was given to me back then. But since that time, I was charged with turning a department around from not being a really great department to a public works department that I hold higher than almost any other department in this state. We did a total reorganization of that department, saved money, and that's all it was said. There were no big fat raises given out. Good job. That's part of your job. That's why you come to work every day. Do your job and get a paycheck. I appreciate where the Budget Committee is coming from, that we hear of two individuals who have turned the world around for us. But this is what I'm going to say. Every year in the budget, those positions were still given the same 3% pay raise that I got and every other department head got. They didn't go without. Oh no, they didn't go without. They went out because they weren't employed for a year. Now, I got to say, if I'm going to get a 3% and every other department head's going to get a 3%, then I suggest that those people get a 3% plus whatever was not given to them last year's budget, whether it be 1.5, 1.75, or 2 point, whatever that difference was. But when you sit there and hear the argument that these people are given these double-digit raises because they're doing a great job, I guess I'm not doing a good job. I guess she's not doing a good job. Because we only got 3%. I'm trying in my mind to get my hands on this. I don't want to come out and say it's insulting, but I'm not happy. I got to be quite honest with you. It's insulting. As a department head who runs one of the biggest departments in this town, with the exception of the police department, I wasn't going to get up tonight because I don't want it to be about me. That person right there should be highly insulted. And I don't know what else to say about it. And if anybody else has anything to say, that's fine. But I had to say what I had to say tonight. Because some of the raises that are proposed for certain people with certain times, we got people getting raises that just about have a year on the job. And then you've got union people getting pay raises, proposed pay raises, outside of their contractual agreements. And everybody's wondering why morale isn't that great. That's a perfect example why.
Mr. Pendergast, before you walk away, I absolutely appreciate your comments. If we baselined your salary, or at least did a comparative of your salary with similar towns around, do you fit within the range?
Everyone's low. This town has been cheap for years. Every salary is low. All you got to do is look at all the comparisons statewide. Every department head, every department is low. So now we'll single out a couple people. It's
I
not right.
think we're working towards making sure that we're not the lowest paying town, and I understand exactly how you feel.
Right.
I think we're working towards that, and
That's fantastic. How about we start with the person who's been here for 30 years? Not the person who's been here for 1 year.
Mr. President. Mr. Pendergast. No, you don't, that's okay, Ray, it's fine. Thank you for your candor. I hope there's no repercussions for you speaking here tonight. That is a concern when anybody's appointed to your position. You have intestinal fortitude that I only wish I had half of. I'd also like to say something else. That you took a dysfunctional department, you turned it around, and you did it short of staff. So all the folks that work with you, I never say work for you, all the folks that work with you picked up a tremendous amount of effort to bring your department back to where it should be and is. And I want to applaud you for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Administrator Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to ask the committee if this is the first time they hear of this disagreement. It's the first time I do. I have met with my department heads, actually as far back as December. Ray, you never said this to me. I would have loved to have been able to sit down and have a discussion where we could have possibly looked at things in a more, according to public perception, a more equal type of thing. When you don't know how someone's feeling, it's hard to figure it out, you know,
So it's
I
his
think-
fault? Excuse me.
So I think what we should probably do to avoid this in the future is to have meetings more frequently with the department heads and have them during the year when things are happening so that we're not meeting just once a year when it's a very non-committal, regular time that we meet for a budget. I would like to hear more about this, and I would hope that you come and speak to me in private as well, because I don't have an opportunity to say what I haven't had a chance to even understand this yet, okay? I think we could work together on this, and I think there are some legitimate issues, but when you hear it first time in a public forum, it's a little disconcerting. And what I'd like to do is try to work with you on it, and so that everyone feels valued in this town. Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. Pendergast.
I appreciate that.
I'm watching this.
I think this is the point I think I'm trying to make. I'm not the finance director. I'm not part of the budget committee. I didn't even know about half of these raises until I got the final stuff a few weeks ago. It's not my job to go through the finance department and see all the proposals that they're putting in for. I got my own problems in my own department. I got 100 things I'm looking at in my budgets. I think the point I'm trying to make is, this is no surprise, obviously. The finance department's known about this since they proposed it, or whoever proposed it back in January, February. I just happen to be reading all the budgets, and I'm going through all the spreadsheets, and I'm looking at people, because people in my department are asking me why some people are getting all these raises, or proposed raises, which led me this weekend to go through the budget committee report and see if this was true. So, I didn't even know about this when I put my, if I knew this, I would put half my department in for $10,000 raises. I didn't think that's the way it was. I was never given that opportunity. That's all I'm trying to say. I think that now that it's on the table, I think that the council has to look at the parity of where we're going with this. If you're going to have department heads getting 16% pay raises because they're doing their job, and others who are still doing their job after all these years and getting a 3%, I gotta be honest with you, it's not a love fest going on now. It's not. It's not pretty. I still come to work every day because that's the way I was brought up. I come to work, I do my job. I don't want more than what I'm proposed for, but it doesn't sit right with people either, though. People are talking, everybody's talking about it, and it's not right. That's all I'm saying. Fear is fear.
If I may, I would try to respond to that in a limited fashion. And while we certainly appreciate all the comments that have been made today about the raises and all the different raises that there are recommended in that budget, a lot of it came with thought. It was not just willy-nilly, let's pick one or two and let's give a high raise here or a low raise there. There were a lot of, as I think it's already been alluded to, there's a state report that lists where this town stands with most all of the department heads. We can certainly put that up on the website so people can look at it and access it and see. In most cases, out of the 39 cities and towns, we fall down higher, down around 37, 36 with regards to what we're paying our department heads. So we certainly weren't trying to write the boat all in 1 year. We were looking at which department heads looked like it would be good to shore them up. And we did make a recommendation in the budget message that it was a continuation of a prior year's recommendations to look at department head salaries reflecting a competitive wage upon hire to ensure a reduction in the amount of turnover. It is a tool that this town has to hire appropriately qualified, well-meaning individuals, well-dedicated individuals to run this town. Definitely the department heads that you have in here who've been here for 10, 15, and 30 years obviously have proved their worth in salt. And I think that certainly that is something if the town council wishes to look into that. For this year, it's their privilege to do so. The situation I see with Smithfield is that you are very strapped with department head salaries because you created an ordinance in July which sets a salary. It does not set a range of salaries, it just sets a figure. And that can be very difficult to deal with when you have to hire new personnel, because you don't have any leeway in order to reflect the times and understand what the credentials for that particular department head now are. They have probably changed in 30 years or 15 years. And you've got to keep up with the times when you're putting a job description together. But if the administration is strapped with an ordinance that's done in July and they need to hire someone in January or February, it puts them at a disadvantage. So I'm suggesting that the council, and if they wish to task it to the budget committee, to look at all of the salaries, come up with recommendations for a future year, for this coming year, so that in FY18 you could address those department heads that have not been addressed this year, then I think we would be more than happy to take that task on.
Mr. President.
Councilman Zawinski.
Chair Farisi, thank you for offering. Can you post that soon so I can start looking at it and making some comparisons? Thank you very much.
And, Mr. President, may we ask of the Budget Committee to start looking at what we need to do to baseline our town with similar communities and to make sure that we are competitive so we can attract and retain the best talent to run this town in the most efficient and effective way possible. Not just for new hires, for people that have been here for 30 years, people who have given their life to this town. Because I absolutely agree with Mr. Prendergast. If we had the money, we would all be top paid. I think everyone in this town gives their heart and soul to everything that they do. Every employee in this town absolutely does, and they care, and they love this town. And they should be fairly compensated. And not just a percentage-wise comparison between person A, person B, or whatever department. It should be a like town comparison. So if we could start to look at that through, Mr. President, I'm asking the Budget Committee to start comparing similar towns and salaries of not just the department heads, but the employees below, And we can, as you said, and as I stated to Mr. Prendergast, we have to start somewhere. And we don't have all the money to do it at once, but that's something that I would love to see for the town going forward. And I don't think anybody would disagree.
Mr.
May I?
President? Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
For the most part, I agree with what Councilwoman Nato said, but I will disagree with one point, and that is, could we start doing this? If we're proposing double-figure salary increases, it should have already been done across the board. It shouldn't have been just done for specific department heads. There should have been a study done, and we've had this discussion before, for all department heads in this town, previous to the budget, not post-budget. It's bad for morale, it's bad for morale at all levels. And to say that it should be done going forward, well, it should have been done prior to.
That's true, Mr. Solly, and me asking through the president for the budget committee to start doing that doesn't mean that the work hasn't already started. It's an official request. There are a few of us who have already done that. I know what a lot of the department heads make in different towns, it's all public information. I've looked at that myself, and I know certain members of the budget committee have taken it upon themselves to look at that, but they have not come together as a board and taken it on as a task. So I'm officially asking for that to happen.
Mr. President, if I may.
Councilman Zawinski.
We have proposed salaries budget from the town administrator. We have proposed salaries budget from the finance review committee. Ultimately, this town council makes a decision on salaries for this coming budget. And there's no hamstringing of us to make a decision to have to wait till the next cycle to appropriately remunerate the people that work for this town. So I'm saying to you that I'll be looking at this and I'll be making some calls for higher pays for people that have only been put in for 3%. Hopefully my council colleagues will consider that. We don't have to wait until the next cycle to do that. There should be balance. I know that the morale is terrible because I talk to some of the folks in town call me and they tell me it's almost egregious what has happened here. So ultimately we'll make the decision on payroll salaries.
Yeah, but we also have another fiscal impact of that, of our decisions as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, how's it going to
But,
affect the
Mr.
tax
President,
rate?
I'm not calling for double-digit increases for people that have been here 15 and 30 years. I'm talking about fair and equitable recognition of the commitment they've made over the tenure of their service to this town.
Mr. Lombardi.
Mr. President, I just want to just address one quick thing. When I said I supported the raises that were in the budget and we get what we pay for, I was under the assumption that they were across the board. So I don't know, and I believe that my report on abatements recommended that as well. That's going back a little ways. I would say, I would just make a statement that whatever everybody's worth, we should be paying. So no matter who it is, and it should be immediate. The other thing that Ms. Farrison said was that we should probably, possibly put ranges in. Out of the 2,000 people in Providence, I would say there's probably less than 100 with ranges. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, everybody has a range, which is steps, but those steps generally come in step 1, and you move up to step 5. But there's no like 20,000 to 50,000 that you can pay. So I don't know what difference that would make, to be honest with you.
Mr. Lumb.
Thank you very much. We're standing here tonight discussing how to equally pay certain employees through the course of other towns and comparing them to other towns. We must have lost at least 7 to 10 top step teachers moving to other towns as top steps, getting between $7,000 and $12,000 raises. And they've been at the school in North Smithfield for close to 30 years. And they're leaving with a $7,000 to $10,000 raise. It's just not totally town equals to other towns in the town side of it. it's, the school department's losing a lot of great experience left and right because of the lower pay scales. Nobody thinks they're gonna get it overnight, but you just settle a contract with the teachers that was a very low percentage rate compared to other towns. That's, didn't seem to concern anybody at that time. So I just want to make note, you know, we're fighting also for a contract at the time. I'd love to tell you what was proposed to us, but I don't want to make everybody laugh here, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay, the second call. Anybody like to speak? Mr. Erickson.
I agree that we pay very low compared to other towns. I do think that we have had a particular problem since I've been here almost 8 years. We've gone through we have four different finance directors. Starting with 2 part-time people and combined to be 1. There's no question that this has been the most difficult of all the positions to fill with quality people. And I think we need to understand what the marketplace is, never mind equitable situations. The marketplace is that finance directors have outside opportunities, outside of government, and they have larger towns. When we lost Brian a couple of years ago, that was a huge hit. And he went for, what, over $100,000. Over $100,000 for another town. That's how good he was. In Rhode Island, you see planners going to Connecticut for $10,000 more, to Massachusetts for $20,000 more. A lot of people I know have moved. Well, Kingstown lost a big, a very important planner. They just don't come out of planning school and fill these positions. Our office brings in twice as much in grants as we cost the town. Before, you didn't have a whole lot coming in, maybe half of what we're doing. And that makes a huge difference in terms of the benefit to the town, where you can get things for basically nothing, or for paying 20 cents on the dollar for a matching situation. So you have to go through and figure out what is competitive and where we've had the most problems. And there's no question in my mind that we've had the most problem in finance director. That's the biggest turnover. I personally don't really care. But I'll tell you, the next time you go looking for a planner, you're going to have a difficult time with the rate you're paying. I came here because I had a sense of community. And that was great. I mean, that's something you miss in the private sector. But as the working conditions and sense of community fall, so does the need to compensate in some other way. So if you have a really great community spirit and a sense of community, rather than bickering and petty hatreds, you're going to get a lot more person for your dollar than otherwise. So there's 2 things to consider. One are the working conditions, the overall environment, and 2, the actual dollar amount that people are getting.
Does anyone else wish to speak at this time? Going once. Going twice.
Oh, come on, I gotta be here at 11 o'clock. What are you doing? Somebody talk.
And that's it.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on the fiscal budget.
Second.
Motion by Council Zawinski, second by Councilman Nero to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Alves? Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
Mr. Sol?
Yes.
Mr. Swansky?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes. There's a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Council Zawinski, second by Councilman Sol to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now adjourned.